This is a part 2 series of how to create a profitable mobile apps. And if you didn't listen to the part 1 yet, I highly suggest you to listen to that episode so you will have a better understanding about our discussion today. Alright, without wasting any more time, let's jump in.
Welcome to One Day, One Hack, the podcast that's guaranteed to help you be the best version of yourself. Each week, we'll share a new trend of business strategies and life hacks that'll enable you to maximize your full potential. Now, let's welcome our host, Ashraf.
Now we have identified the mistakes and how to overcome that. But here's one thing that holds people from creating an apps. It is the method. They don't know where to start or what's the first step, how to get it done. So, Carnelia, let's talk about the steps to create a mobile apps.
Sure. So for us, it's really about 5 steps, right? So we typically
5 steps.
use a combination of lean startup, a little bit of design thinking, and design sprints. So design sprints are a really big part of the process that we use to develop any product. So the first step in that is to really understanding what the problem is that your product is going to solve or be a solution for. Many people start with idea, like, oh, I have an idea for an app, but it's like ideas are a dime a dozen, but does your idea really solve a problem is the position of which you should be thinking about in terms of, I have an idea for a product. So it should really be, I have a problem that I'm solving as opposed to I have an idea. So the first thing is to understand and define the problem that your product is going to solve. So that's the first step, right? And so that's in terms of looking at the concept, looking at the long-term and short-term goals of the idea or the problem that your product is solving, and then mapping that out into some sort of product concept flow, right? And so step 2 would be generate a solution. So based on the problem that you're solving, okay, what's going to be the solution, which is your product, and how are you going to communicate that? And so what we typically do is kind of draw out kind of a storyboard, and we create like a storyboard of, here's the problem I'm solving, the kind of a problem statement. And then you're going to draw out, maybe just like in a very elementary format, we just kind of draw out with paper and pen or markers or such, just a few, like maybe 8 boxes on a piece of paper, and kind of concept out how the app will be addressing the actual problem that we're solving. So you're going to create kind of a user test flow on your storyboard. And then what we do with that is we kind of sit down with a customer or a client, or the client can sit down. If you're the person doing it, you can sit down with maybe a family member or friends or such and say, okay, my app solves this particular problem, and kind of walk them through those 6 boxes in terms of, writing out the story of your app and how it's actually going to solve the problem that people have, that your intended problem is, and then see if it makes sense to that user. Does this make sense? It's more of a paper prototyping at this point, which is the next phase. Which is the next step, is kind of prototyping it out. So I typically like to move that storyboarding to a paper prototyping. In some cases, we do paper prototyping. In other cases, we may do a prototyping using something like Envision or Figma, which is out there, or Sketch. Those are other types of tools, if you're more tech savvy, that you can actually use. We use those every day in prototyping. Or if you don't have any of those tools, you can also do a paper prototyping, which is the same thing. It's just that you're just mapping it out on paper, or you're kind of drawing it out as it makes sense to you in terms of, when user opens up my app, they would go to this screen, and then when they click on this, it would go to that screen, or when they click on enter this information, it would go to this screen. So it's kind of just taking them through pictorially how the app will work for a particular user. So the next step after you do a prototype or creating a prototype, again, prototyping can be a paper prototype, or it can be using a prototyping tool like Sketch, Figma, or Envision. Those are more, and I like those particular prototyping tools because it's interactive. So another prototyping tool that I think is a pretty good one to mention is it's called Bubble. And so Bubble is another prototyping tool that it almost mimics the real app. So, when you pull up on your phone, just like an Envision, it actually looks like an app, but it's not really the full, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it gives someone a really good idea as to how your app will actually work. So it looks like an app, it functions like an app. And then I know that for me, and a lot of pitches that I sit in and then a judge at, many people use those, and it gives us a great idea as to what your product is, how it works, and what some of the functionality might be. So it's a really good opportunity there. The last phase, or the next phase that we do is we take that prototype and we test it with users. So typically about 5 users would make sense. And again, so you're stating to them what the problem is that your product is solving. And then you have those 5 users to test your product, right? So they just test it out to see if it makes sense. Now, when you're testing it out, you don't want to guide them as much. You just want to kind of leave them alone, and observe them. Let them know that, okay, I'm going to have you test my prototype, and I'm just going to observe. I'm not here to answer any questions or to help you to navigate, because it puts them in a very, very realistic situation. So when we download apps on our phone, the creator's not there to say, oh, well, you have to click on this button and this goes here and that. You kind of have to figure it out,
Yeah.
So we want to get someone the same experience when they're testing out your prototype. All right, so make sure that you're not sitting there and, helping them out, but you're just observing quietly and just letting them navigate through as much as they can. Because the thing about it is, if their navigation is not correct, then of course that's insight for you that, okay, that's something you need to work on, make it more intuitive. Maybe it isn't as intuitive as you thought it was. And so that would help you quite a bit to get some really good data up front. And the last part about in our stages that we do anyway is the pitching, the storytelling. So you have to have a really compelling story about your product. What is the problem you're solving and why? Why is this problem important to you to solve in the first place? And what are the things that led you to developing this product in the first place? And who are the actual users? Who's your target market? Who's your target users that this problem is resonating for? And so it really helps you when you're writing out your pitch deck, whether you are going after venture capital funding or some kind of angel investing funding, or if you're just looking for partners or really customers. It really helps you to have a pitch deck, even if you're not going after venture capital funding. Pitch decks help you to tell the story of your product and help people, even customers, to understand and resonate with your product in a way that you normally wouldn't with just some description of what the product is about. It gives you a more deeper details about why you're actually creating this app in the first place.
So the 5 steps are problem, identify the problem, and then after that we have to know the solution.
Yes.
And the third step is doing a prototype on paper and a bubble. And and then the fourth step is testing to the real audience. And then the last step is pitching with a story. Is that correct?
Pitch with a story. Yes, it is.
To our listeners, Carnelia has just given the step-by-step formula to create a mobile apps. You can apply it right now and start a career as a mobile apps developer, right?
Well, at least I wouldn't say developer, but at least you can, how to, well, of course, once you have your story pitching and everything in your prototype, let me just caveat that, you can actually, if you wanted to develop it at that point, once you get your feedback from your testing, you may have to have to reiterate. You have to kind of iterate that process again, so you can do some tweaks and do some edits and make it more intuitive and add some of the elements that people commented on or maybe complained about, and then start developing. So your development would be developing an MVP. If we had one more last step, that would be developing the MVP. And the MVP again would be your minimal viable product, and that would be including or developing your app such that you're including the top 1 to 2 features. I would say 1 to 3 features maybe, but maybe 1 to 3 features in the product that make the most sense based on the problem that your product is solving. And then, so, or if you're not a developer yourself, then you would find a development company or a development friend or somebody who can help you to go ahead and develop that. In some cases, I will say Bubble, the prototyping tool that I mentioned, Bubble is also a really good tool to use, which requires no programming at all,
Mm.
that you can also use as an MVP. You can create a Bubble application as your MVP if you wanted to do that, because there's a lot of APIs you can also include using Bubble that will allow you to create an app without coding it.
Wait, for Bubble, is that the name of the website or is it simulation? What is Bubble?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
is
you
it?
can look up Bubble. It's a prototyping tool. I believe it's bubble.io, but I could be
It's a
mistaken.
website.
Yes, so you can also use Bubble. I believe it's bubble.io, but you can also use
Ah,
Bubble as well to prototype. So it really gives you a good opportunity to have your app without coding it. And so some of my clients also
ah,
have used Bubble as an MVP, and they've used it for a couple of months with their users. You can actually even process transactions using Bubble as an MVP as well. So it's a really,
mm,
really great tool.
that's amazing. Now we
Yeah.
know the website, right? To test it. Is it kind of simulator? No.
Mhm. Well, not necessarily a simulator, but
Oh,
it's a true prototyping tool, but it's an interactive prototyping tool. Um,
oh,
and we use it, for clients who have a simple enough app where they can just,
to test it?
create something quickly. We create it really
Oh,
quickly, and we can get customers, users out there to use it. And then once they get to a certain place where they need to get more complicated functionality features, by then they would have raised some capital, or maybe they would have gotten enough transactions to have some investment money available to then create the next phase of their product. But it gives you a really good start.
oh yeah, it will be a good start, like
Hmm.
Bubble. And also there
Yeah.
is a apps moment, right? Have you heard about that apps moment? Well,
Apps Warman?
yeah, apps moment. But if you haven't heard yet, that's okay.
Yeah.
Imagine they have created an apps. They have used the steps that you give, the five
Uh-huh.
steps.
Hmm.
But we don't just want to create an apps. We want to create the best selling apps, the profitable apps. So
Yeah.
what is the secret to create one?
I mean, the best, it's not even a secret, really. It's about creating a product that people want. So
Oh,
the only way that you can do that is to make sure that you're testing it out with the people that you're intended to be the users. Um, yeah, so there's no really secret. It's really about, does your product resonate with the customer base that it's intended to
mm-hmm.
resonate
So,
with? Hmm.
mm-hmm. So it's all based on customer needs.
That's right.
Yep. So that is the best secret. So,
That's the secret. Yeah.
oh, it's all about people, right?
Yes, that's right.
And so, imagine we are creating an apps about editing picture or video, but when we search on the Play Store, there are already hundreds of it. So, how to stand out among these apps? What makes our apps different than theirs?
Well, that's the thing about apps today, and it's not even just apps today. It's just products in general. Um, it's, of course, it's the branding and things like that, but um, because different apps and different types of products resonate with people differently. You can have somebody who is a Windows person versus a Mac person. I mean, it's really about personal preference at the end of the day. Like you said, you can have apps that are about streaming video, but it's really, which one resonates with you, the user, the best, because it may be that we have tons of accounting apps out there, or financial management types of apps,
Mm-hmm.
that are on the market space. But many entrepreneurs use QuickBooks or Quicken, or they may use Mint, so it really depends on, what resonates with you. I mean, for me, it's also sometimes the interface, like I like Mint because it's clean, it's like, it's simple, it's minimalistic,
Mm-hmm.
versus, QuickBooks or Quicken, where it's, a little bit more convoluted. I just don't see them being as simplistic and clean looking as, say, a Mint. So it really depends on your preference as a user.
Mm.
And the only way that you know that is by testing a few apps out, in the space. So today, I really like. I'm not really into Twitter as much as I am Instagram and LinkedIn. Those are my two favorite platforms that I'm using now in terms of social media. So, but now it looks like Facebook and and LinkedIn and Instagram are all kind of creating the same functionality and features. So,
Yep.
so it really depends on what you like and what resonates with you best.
In the end, they are all same.
Yeah, it's looking like they're all kind of bringing in the same functionality and features at the end of the day, but the platforms are very different in terms of the user experience. So whatever experience that feels more resonating with you is the one that you're going to go with most often.
So the apps that makes me comfortable, that's the one,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me put this in a quote. Doing better is good, but doing differently is better.
Yes, well, I think so. I think, yeah, because I mean, I have clients who come to us and they say, "Oh, well, I'm going to create an app, but it's already been done. This person's
Hmm.
already done that." Okay, well, that doesn't mean that you can't do the app also. I mean, the way in which you do it in terms of design and user experience and UX, your user the user experience, the user interface can make a huge difference. Somebody may like one app, but
Hmm.
they may not like another app because the interface is not, the color scheme, or it's not clean, or it's not intuitive, or, the user experience is just not as, it doesn't bring a lot of pleasure when they're using it. So it's all about the design.
Ah, yeah, it's all design. The thumbnail, the design. The first thing people see will be the design, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah. And if it's appealing to you, then you'll probably gravitate to that.
yep. So first impression is important. So to our listeners, all the tips and strategies that you listen today can also be applied to computer apps. Is that correct? Not just mobile apps, because the mistakes and how to overcome it and the step by step that you just gave, all of
Mm-hmm.
this can be applied in computer apps, right?
Yeah, it's for desktop, mobile. We also apply it in our hardware products as well because we do a lot of Internet of Things related products as well. So it's also related to, and we also apply the same format that I just laid out
Mm-hmm.
for our hardware as well.
So I suggest to our listeners to listen to this episode again and apply it. You will become the best apps developer.
Well, again, I don't know about developer, but you
Oh,
certainly will have a good product. You'll definitely have a good
oh,
product if
yeah.
you do that. You'll have a product that people actually like, that people actually want to use, and an app
Mm-hmm.
that people actually feel that it is solving a problem that they need solved.
Yep, I agree.
Hmm.
All right. So we are close to an end today. And Cornelia, what is one thing that our listeners would really get from our chat today? And share with us how we can find more about you and how to connect with you.
Sure. If you get nothing else, I would say validate your idea in a way that's economical first. Don't just run out there and start developing a product with tons of bells and whistles, functions, features, and functionality without first validating your idea in a way that's economical. You can use tools such as the paper prototyping that I mentioned. It's just
Mm-hmm.
getting a piece of paper and it's driving out sketching out the storyboard of the product, or you can use a prototyping tool with Division, Bubble, Sketch, Figma, any of those types of prototyping tools. They're really fun to use. There's another one called Gravits that would be really fun to use. And they're just really great tools to help out with prototyping. Another way to, and also a way to reach me is via our website, which is www.mind, M-I-N-D, Catalyst, that's KATALYST.com. We're also with the same name on all social media. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
We do have if you log on to our website, we do have an email series, a video series that actually takes you through a process of how do you go from idea to market fit. It's a video email series, and it's about over a course of 5 days. And again, you can get that at www.mind, M-I-N-D, Catalyst, K-A-T-A-L-Y-S-T.com.
And Carnelia, thank you for sharing your true and valuable with us. Really appreciate to have you here. And for the listeners, I will catch you another time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Would you like to know more about business strategies and life hacks that could make your life more productive? If so, subscribe to our podcast now so you don't miss out later. Remember, always hack your day.